Story 1. Am I the a-hole for tolerating a night out with my girlfriend? Earlier this year, I gifted my girlfriend, 33 female, tickets to a concert that she really wanted to go to that was this past Friday night. I'm 36 male, not a fan of her music, nor the fact that this concert was in the city, but I wanted to make it a great gift. She was elated when I told her that I bought the VIP package, meet and greet, pictures with the band, etc. Last week, my girlfriend began asking if we had to get to the venue early. Being the thorough, detailed person that she is, I assured her I would check. Instead, I was too busy with work. Honestly, it was getting a bit annoying that almost every few days she would ask, so I told her I didn't see anything while deleting a bunch of emails from the venue for concerts I don't even care about. On Friday afternoon, she told me that she had tried looking things up and was only finding that the doors opened at 7. With that, I picked her up at 6 and arrived at the venue for 7. Once inside, she showed security our tickets and asked about the meet and greet. The bouncer informed us that the VIP was at 6. I froze. Now my girlfriend turns to me, asking if I received any kind of emails. The tickets were in my name. I told her that I deleted emails, and she seemed to understand. I actually really enjoyed the whole time, so once her band set ended, we decided to not stay for the last band. And this is where the trouble began. It's 10 p.m. We're outside of the venue, and she suggests we go to a bar a block away and either walk or ride share. Immediately, I said there was not a chance. She mentioned that my car was in a secured lot and we wouldn't be far. But I lost my cool, which I admit was not the best way to go about things, and told her, "You don't go out in the city. There is crime all over the place." She responded that we were in the city. I went off how I can't stand it here, so she said that we'll just leave. No raising of her voice. She just said she was fine with leaving. She was silent all the way back, and I suggested that we go back to my place to finish out the night, and she refused. This also ticked me off because I asked what was wrong with the bar next to the apartment, and she shut that down with her short responses. Overall, the night cost me over $300, and while she's saying more to me now as opposed to Friday night, she's being very distant. She told me she could live with not going to the meet and greet, except for how things turned out afterwards, and that is where the disappointment truly set in. My response was that I was only bringing her to the concert, nowhere else, and thinking of her safety. She continued that I shouldn't have brought the tickets if I was only tolerating doing so. I do accept that I made some mistakes, chiefly with making us miss the meet and greet. The timing of the concert should have made this an unforgettable experience since her grandmother just passed away. Am I the a-hole? I'm going to say yes. You knew this was an important band for her, and you arranged for the VIP package. You should have taken some care into looking at when the meet and greet was. I realize that you may not be as detail-oriented as your girlfriend, but this was a band she liked. This was important to her, and it's really amazing that she was okay with not having the meet and greet. That was part of it. It's the overall emotion, it's the overall attitude that you had that continued on with that really let her down. She was really ecstatic about this. She wanted, you were taking her there. She really was glad that you were with her and in some way wanted you to be a part of it. Yeah, you are kind of the a-hole for not taking a little more interest in at least the details of the event you paid this money for that you were mentioning in the article. Yes. I can understand why she's upset. Yeah, and now she's speaking up about it. Story 2. Oh my, we're so sorry we blocked your doorway. Now go get your earmuffs. I've had a long, respectable career in game development. A couple of years ago, I abandoned it for a cushy corporate job, and now spend most of my days missing game dev. This story takes place about 10 years ago at the apex of my career. I was the lead on a AAA project. Our parent company, for which video games was just one of many lines of business, was going through changes. We had to move offices 3 times in 1 year. Second of the 3 moves, always intended to be temporary, put us into the basement of an older building long occupied by satellite departments not involved with development. The basement we were given had been empty for years, save for the most distant office. You entered the basement through a dimly lit staircase. Then, after you snaked through a horror movie-like maze of corridors and interconnected small rooms, you'd eventually arrive at the farthest room of all. A golden plaque was on the door. Trademark Compliance Department. Literally no one I knew was ever aware of trademark compliance, even though trademarks were a pretty important part of everything we did. The department consisted of a single elderly trademark attorney and his fresh-faced college grad assistant / paralegal / whatever. The lawyer flipped his fracking smeg when he learned people were being moved into his basement. For a couple of weeks, he tried desperately to prevent the move, getting all the way to the CEO. The tiny, leathery lawyer amazed everyone with his deep, booming voice that would climb and climb and climb in pitch as he yelled and screamed and threatened. So, all his efforts being for naught, our stuff was moved into the basement over 1 weekend. We spent the following Monday and Tuesday dealing with all sorts of setup woes, electrical outlets, network connections, breathable air. On Wednesday, 2 quiet 2D artists came into their L-shaped room, the one with the fancy door to trademark compliance, and found that all their stuff, chairs, desks, computers, everything, was pushed into the far corner. A walkway of cautionary tape was set up leading to the compliance door. While we were trying to figure out what the hell happened, a demi-deity VP, as close to the company's CEO as it gets, walked into our lowly basement, trailed by the beaming lawyer. Apparently, our desks blocked his door. He even had pictures. The demi-deity hadn't seen them prior to walking down. Once he saw dozens and dozens of close-ups of the desk corner, the VP's face grew less certain. Our desk was blocking his doorway by less than an inch on the side with the hinges. The door opened away from the desk. I'm guessing even when open at 90 degrees, the edge of the door was about as wide as the protruding part of the desk. In other words, it was technically blocking the doorway, but no more so than the door itself. Non-committal as always, the demi-deity instructed us to make sure all pathways were clear at all times, and that he expected this would be the last time he had to get involved. I'm generally a people pleaser. I can even maybe sympathize with an old guy freaking out when a gaggle of man-children in ironic t-shirts wreck his long-established way of life. I figured it was time to modify the seating chart. 2 people would be a pretty tight fit for that weird room, and I also didn't want my quiet flower child artists anywhere near that loon. I apologized to the lawyer, and I told him I was moving 2 people out and moving just 1 person in, making sure it was as uncluttered as possible. I had 2 potential candidates in mind, and while leaning strongly towards one, I considered a milder option in case the lawyer turned out to be an all-right guy after all. The lawyer answered my apology with a triumphant, "Serves you right," and "That's what you get for messing with adults," and "Welcome to the real world," and "This is far from over." He then ordered me to wait right here, and came out with a tape measure. We snaked through his entire path from the staircase to his office, measuring clearance from desks and chairs and people's items, and the lawyer booped desks and monitors and garbage cans and pushed people sitting in their chairs as if they were garbage cans. He crawled on the floor and marked out no man's land in chalk. No one was ever allowed to block his pathway, or he'd have everyone's jobs. Once all the lines were drawn and the lawyer retreated to his fortress of smugness, I knew our slightly unhinged physics programmer with his anime posters and the loud clunk of his mechanical keyboard would not be moving to the room after all. My revenge was going pro. Now, the issue of sound was discussed more than any other as we were planning the temporary move. Our sound designer had to listen to all sorts of sounds at full volume on different types of speakers, not just on his headphones. If sound was designed on headphones and you played it on surround speakers, you'd sense it. Our old office had a professionally soundproofed room. Even then, that was a pretty unpleasant thing. Huge sound could not be heard, but could be felt. Like an inaudible earthquake, it struck you with primal dread. So we discussed this on and on. I wanted a soundproof room. Management wanted headphones. We eventually agreed on a compromise. We'd just have to accept screams and explosions on speakers while we were in the basement. This decision had also been made and approved by the same VP about a month before the walkway in chalk incident. You already see where I'm going with this. We made the walkway semi-permanent with construction tape. I took pictures and sent an update email to everyone reporting that A, we pledged to keep our pathway clear at all times, and B, the offending room would have the two girls moved out and only have the sound designer move in. VP replied with, "Thank you. That's great." See how the email listed the sound designer in an offhand way? This was not my first rodeo. We moved the sound designer and all his equipment into the room. The next morning, explosions started, then stopped. High-pitched screams in the distance, footsteps. My door flew open and the lawyer ran in screaming, "What the frack?" He dragged me across the street to the VP's office. The VP was not there. The lawyer screamed and jumped and stomped his little feet, left voicemails, then retreated to write an email to the VP with CC list possibly going all the way up to President Obama and the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. I quickly replied that 1. Sound design issues had been extensively discussed and were deemed a necessary evil. 2. I notified everyone before the fact the sound designer was moving to that particular room. And 3, if I had to keep moving people around every day, I wouldn't be able to hit my milestones. VP replied the next morning saying, "He's right about milestones. Besides, it's temporary anyway." And so, for the next 7 months, the compliance department was subjected to 8 hours a day of nonstop explosions, gunfire, screams, grunts, engine roar, and wet thuds. Once released, our game's sound was singled out for praise in multiple reviews. I put the lawyer's name somewhere in the midst of the thank you section of the credits. Oh, that's the icing on the cake. I really wish they would have named names. I want to know what game this is. Truly, I would love to know what game this is. Sounds like it's some kind of heavy action first-person shooter, but, anybody have any ideas? Anybody in the industry know? I really want to know.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 3. My sister is in some weird cult. No, that's not clickbait, and I'm seriously worried about her and all of the other people involved. Okay, so my sister graduated from high school last year and decided to take a gap year. She came across a Craigslist posting by a woman I'll refer to as Eileen about how she has a farm and she's looking for kids who want life experience, that she'll provide them room and board to work on her farm, and how she can teach them all of these great skills. I never saw the ad, but I remember my sister telling me about it at the time. She was very excited. This opportunity was everything she had been looking for, she had told me. So she began a correspondence with Eileen. I did not live with my sister. I'm older by 5 years, so I was not on the scene when all of this was going down. So she ended up going to this place last August. I think maybe early September. I've only spoken with her through email since, and at first she was happy. Everything was good, she was making friends and all of that. I was wondering why she only emailed, and she told me there's no phone service on the ranch. Eileen doesn't believe in phones, and she takes them to the library for internet access. That right there was the first time I thought something was a bit off, but my sister was happy, so I didn't push it. Over time, the tone of her emails changed. She would talk about her friends there, the animals and all the activities she was doing, not about Eileen much. Then it gradually became that Eileen is all she would talk about. Eileen was telling her some seriously messed up stuff, and if she didn't agree with it, everyone else would ignore her existence until she broke down crying and apologized. Eileen made her slaughter her favorite chicken. Eileen said she needed to cleanse herself and wouldn't let her eat solid food for a week. Eileen made her take substances. Seriously disturbing stuff. I told her she needed to get out of there, that I'd come pick her up, but she would downplay everything, make excuses for Eileen, say she was overreacting, that it wasn't as bad as she made it seem, etc. I didn't know what to do at that point. I thought something hinky was going on, but at the same time, my sister was an adult, and I trusted her judgment at the time. It's not like I had anything to go off of, a location or anything, and while disturbing, I didn't think anything super egregious was happening. Eileen seemed like an eccentric survivalist type, but ultimately harmless. Yes, I was tentatively concerned, is what I'm trying to say. But I felt like my sister was mature and intelligent enough to know when she was in over her head. My sister emailed me yesterday, and I don't feel like that's the case anymore. Something had happened, and from what I was able to ascertain, one of the other girls at this place committed some kind of cardinal sin, and Eileen instructed the other kids to viciously beat this girl. My sister was forced to participate in this. She seemed distraught about it, but ultimately blamed the girl because she should have known better than to have done what she did. I don't know what she did. My sister wouldn't elaborate on it. I stayed up all night poring over her emails, looking for some clue, but I couldn't figure anything out. I know my sister took a Greyhound to Lansing, and Eileen picked her up from the bus station. So I think this freak show is probably in either Eaton or Ingham, but as to more specifics, I have no idea. I don't think my sister even knows. I have a hunch they're in or around Mason because Eileen made the kids spend the night at Seven Gables, but other than that, I'm coming up empty. I know this is a jumbled fracking mess, but I really need to know what to do. How do I handle this situation? Good update. I did what a lot of people suggested with the IP address. I would have never thought of it. I'm not very tech savvy. She is in Mason, or at least uses that library. I'm going to contact the police there. You guys are rock stars. I think it sounds like we need another update on this, and it really does sound like there's something, while it's not a cult, something extremely awful is happening there. This Eileen sounds like some sort of megalomaniac or something, and this is really kind of dangerous. So I hope there's a follow-up. I hope that he was able to find his sister and get her out of there. She needs to be out of there. Story 4. Made a fake call about your baby being locked in your car with the keys? Now your car is locked with the keys inside again. Circa 2001. I was a AAA tow truck driver and worked an overnight shift on a Friday. I received a call around 10 p.m. for a baby locked in a car with the keys inside. AAA policy is to attend to these types of lockout emergency calls before any other calls that may be waiting. I sped down the highway as fast as my truck could take me and reached the location, which was a local mall. I found the car that was parked in a far corner of the parking lot alongside another car. There were about a half dozen people hanging around. I jumped out of the truck, identified the owner, and asked him if this was his vehicle. "Yep, sure." "Okay, great. Let me see what I can do," I said as I tried to peer into the windows, which were heavily tinted. I saw a glow coming from the stereo and could somewhat make out a blanket in the back seat, but the tint was so dark it was really tough to make out anything else. "The child is in the back seat?" "Yeah, he's asleep." It took me about a minute to open the passenger's front door. As soon as the locking mechanism clicked, the owner of the vehicle reached in front of me, opened the door, and reached inside to grab his keys off the passenger seat and a six-pack of beer off the floor. He stepped back and let out a little smart guy chuckle. I poked my head inside the car and looked in the back seat. There was no baby. The driver was still standing close to me and was in the process of twisting off the bottle cap to his beer while holding his keys in the same hand. Instinctively, I snatched his keys away from him, tossed them back into the car, pushed the lock down on his lock button on his door frame, and slammed it shut. "Go frack yourself. Now you can stay here all night," I said as I walked away and got back into my truck. No one said a word to me, and the driver stood there dumbfounded, holding his beer to his chest as I drove away. I called dispatch and explained what happened, and they made a note not to send any other drivers out to this account for a lockout situation. Yep, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Yeah, this guy was probably counting on customer service to save him, to protect him from his douchebag activities, and this was not the case. And now he's probably got to call someone more expensive. Story 5. Am I the a-hole for embarrassing my cousin and getting us kicked out of a restaurant? I, female 25, don't have kids yet. I never really wanted them growing up, but I figure I'll eventually have kids in the future once I get my life together. My cousin Sarah, 29, has 2 bad-behaved kids from a previous relationship and a newborn baby with her boyfriend MJ, 40. Last night, my mother, sister, Sarah, and I went to a sushi restaurant, and this was my first time having sushi. After we ordered, I had a hard time using the chopsticks. My cousin started obnoxiously laughing. The waiter came over and asked me if I wanted training wheels, which is a little plastic item that attaches to the chopsticks and helps you hold them in place. My cousin laughed and said, "Sorry about her. She constantly embarrasses herself and us." I just gave her the side eye and put the training wheels on. When it was time to order desserts, her boyfriend MJ finally joined us, claiming that he was busy. She went on to tell him how stupid and slow I was for not knowing how to use chopsticks and how the waiters and everyone around now know that I'm an embarrassment. My mom asked her what her problem was, and she went on a rant about how I'm so embarrassing, and it's no wonder I'm jealous of her being a mother, and no one wants to have kids with me? Well, I finally had enough. I said, "I don't have kids because I don't want them to come out like your rude pieces of smeg, and you're calling me an embarrassment? Didn't MJ just have a baby with his wife? Your baby literally has a sibling a week apart from her. You probably learned how to use chopsticks by eating his wife's leftovers." I guess when she was attacking me, It was fine because everyone turned on me. It got so loud that management had to get involved. Sarah was screaming and crying. MJ was yelling at me, and my mom and sister were berating me for being mean. Management brought the bill and told us to please pay it and leave. My mom paid the entire bill, but my sister said I'm an a-hole for embarrassing Sarah and getting us kicked out, and how she's probably going through postpartum depression. Now, I don't know if I went too far, seeing as she's probably going through some post-baby stress. Am I the a-hole? Well, it really is kind of interesting. Is postpartum stress being used here as an excuse? Has she always been this kind of embarrassing and snarky and mean towards people? Or is she acting differently? If she was acting differently, then you probably are the a-hole. And even if she's using this as an excuse, it's probably best not to take care of this in a public situation. You wanted to show your displeasure, probably should have held your temper and saved it for afterwards. And probably start thinking of going limited contact with these people if they're going to treat you like this. It's awful.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.